So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our presentation, Apps and Beyond, Technology in the Library. I'm Jamie Machek with the Wisconsin Valley Library Service, and I'm so pleased that you are all here this afternoon to join us for this webinar presentation. As I mentioned in the intro, if you have a smartphone or web browser handy, feel free to use those during the presentation today. Kris has a couple polls that he's going to be sharing with us, and those are fun to partake in as well. So our presenter today is Kris Turner, and as I mentioned in the intro or in the pre-show slides, Kris is the head of reference at the University of Wisconsin Law School Library, and he gave this presentation at the WAPL conference in May. He'll also be presenting at the WLA conference next week, not on technology, but on a different topic. And I think you'll really enjoy what he has to say about using apps and how they can be used not just in our personal lives, but in the library. So Kris, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kris Turner. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm excited to go through this presentation with you. It's one of my favorite ones to give. It's very interactive. I get to jump out into the browser and show you some really cool things that can happen in real time. And they are really useful tools that you can use in your personal and professional lives as well. I try to keep it as low cost as possible. So most of these are either free or mostly free. A few of them cost a tiny bit, but most of them you can just grab right away if you think that they are something that you can use in your professional life or at your library. So as you were warned, the first thing we're going to do here is a little poll. So I would like to know, what is technology to you? You can just give me a one-word answer. You can see on the poll here, you can either go to the pollev.com/UW Law Library to respond, or you can text an answer to me. And as we start filling this in, you'll see your answers filling in on this on the poll here. So one-word answer, technology is blank. What is technology to you? I'll give you a few minutes to text in something or to respond on the browser there if you'd be so inclined. I know for me, technology means a lot of different things. I'm going to cover some of my own answers after we get some of your answers in here as well.
So I'm seeing in the chat box, some people are responding there, and I'm seeing the words fun. I'm seeing the word now. I'm seeing constantly changing. Necessary.
I agree with all of those.
Oh, here come a few on your screen.
There's a few here, yeah. It is a helpful tool. It's a double-edged sword, in my opinion. It's a helpful tool that can backfire on you drastically if you're not careful with it. Maybe that's just me being cynical. As presenting on technology, I'm always so paranoid presenting on tech with technology. It's almost a guarantee that technology will fail me in my experience. But yeah, it's helpful, it's exciting. I agree with all these adjectives for technology so far. Frustrating, definitively frustrating. Ever changing, for sure. We'll talk on that a little bit here. And it definitely has a learning curve. One thing I'm going to talk about in our presentation is how much of a learning curve is worthwhile for you and for your patrons as you start to show them some of these techniques and tools that we have here. But yeah, perfect. Thank you guys for sharing those thoughts with us. I can't argue with it. You guys are already experts in technology, looks like. I think we can just shut this down early, Jamie. These people already know all the technology we need.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you know what? Never mind. I'll keep going. That sounds like a good idea. So technology here's a few things that I had. Technology is frightening. It's the first one I put up there just because it is constantly changing. It's hard to deal with something that's always changing underneath your feet. And technology is the one that is most doing that all the time. However, it is also mobile. We all know that most of you probably responded on your phones right there, or on a tablet, or on a laptop. You could take that anywhere. We're presenting across vast distances. I'm in Madison, obviously, and we're all here together. So technology is everywhere. It is big. It is sprawling across the entire world right now as we speak, but it is also small. It is dealing with us not just in our day-to-day lives, but in our vast, overarching, connected ways that society is working right now. Technology is aggravating. This goes along with the frustrating one. Like it will work so well. Technology makes everything so much better for everybody, but then when it fails you hard in some cases. So I think patience is a virtue when it comes to technology. Technology is on computers, of course. As we can see, they do have internet on computers these days, whether you believe it or not, but it's also everywhere. So those are just a few of the adjectives I came up with, and we'll see what else you guys think as we go through our presentation here. So we know what technology is to us now, so what is next? How can libraries utilize this technology, knowing what we know about technology and how we feel about technology? So here's some of the things we'll cover today. So libraries can use it for teaching and sharing programs. We'll cover some of the ways that you can teach your patrons how to use and utilize this technology and how to share things using tech. We will also talk about how you can stay current with it. So we can talk a little bit about staying secure with your technology. I'm going to definitely cover that because privacy and security is a very, very important field, area of technology that we want to make sure everyone has a good grasp on. We all, almost daily, it seems like we see leaks where someone has revealed sensitive information from a database, and we want to make sure everyone is aware of these problems or potential problems and how to best protect themselves. Technology is also, I gotta get back to my slide here, there we go. We can also do some testing and some experimenting with technology. So I want to show you some really cool things about how we can test out and experiment with tech in the library. Technology is also how you can stay productive. The way I'm going to end our presentation here is talk about some productivity apps and extensions that you can use to keep yourself focused while you're working at the library or just anywhere really. I have slowly become addicted to the productivity apps and extensions that I will show you today. When I first started showing them, I'm like, oh, these are okay, they're pretty cool. And now I've come to depend on several of them to keep me focused and just to inform me about what's going on in the world so I don't get lost down the rabbit hole of news or other articles online. And then, of course, technology is coding and creating. So one great thing we can do at the libraries is talk about how we can emphasize coding as a very powerful wave, not even wave of the future, that is here now, that is going to continue to grow as almost a language that people will learn how to speak. And there's some really nice low-cost ways that we can get kids involved in that as well. So before we start talking about these specific things, I want to bring up one more thing here, and that is, we all know this already, but it is definitely worth highlighting. Last year when I first started talking about this topic, this came out 2 days before I first presented on it. So in the Library Journal, the top 10 occupations based on the futures of skills and employment in 2030, and you can see that number 9 is right there, is librarians, curators, and archivists. So if they think that we're going to be one of the top 10 occupations in 2030, we have to prove it to ourselves and to them as well. You can see I got so excited, I scribbled all over my PowerPoint here, and I said, look at that, we made the top 10, everyone, success. Now, to stay in that top 10, we're going to have to make sure that we stay relevant, and one great way to do that is to show how competent we are with technology and give our patrons a place to practice and better understand how that technology can work for them. So first, we'll start with teaching in the library with technology. Some of these I bet you have seen, but they are definitely worth going through one more time because I think they are such powerful teaching tools, both for training staff and for working with students and for even working with the public in some ways, anytime you're giving a presentation. So this is, I mean, you're all probably familiar with the gamification of libraries or gamification of education, where you're taking lectures and turning it into a game. People are more interactive with how they are learning, and just make it more of a demo for how they can understand what is going on instead of just listening to a lecture. So we're going to try that right now. I'm going to jump out of my presentation here real quick. We're going to go to Kahoot. This is where it's going to get interactive one more time. We're going to play a literary quiz with Kahoot. If you go to kahoot.it, you can join in here in a minute. So again, that's kahoot.it, and then you type in that game pin, and it'll ask you for a name. So we're going to play a little 3-question quiz here, and we'll just show you how this works. Kahoot is one of my absolute favorite things to show and to use to teach students and patrons how to use the library and how to use different things. You can see that it's naughty nicknames beware. Remember that we're in front of 30-ish people here, 30-plus people, so I don't want to have to say, good job, and then you have to bleep out what I'm saying. So please don't make me do that. You'll get me booted off the webinar, and I'll never be allowed in northern Wisconsin again. All right, so we're getting some good players in here. We'll give you a few more minutes to get signed up. Thank you for playing. I promise it's fun.
So I'm sorry, Kris, we text the number with the word Kahoot in the message?
You go to kahoot.it on a browser,
Got it. Okay.
and then you type in that PIN number on that page.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. I'll give you 1 or 2 more minutes to get everyone signed up here. But Kahoot is a free program that you can create a profile with right away. You just go to getkahoot.com, I believe it is. It's that you just Google Get Kahoot. It'll take you to the page where you can create a profile, and you can start creating quizzes that way. And I'll show you some of the capabilities here in a minute. All right, so we're at 24 players. I think we'll go ahead and get started then. All right, so we have 3 questions. On your screen or your phone, you're going to see the colors that you'll be choosing. It says, what book features rabbits trying to find a new home? On your browser, you'll see that there are the colors at the bottom and the shapes. You choose what you think is the right answer. Is it Catch-22, Watership Down, The Stand, or Where the Red Fern Grows? That is a giant rabbit. Every time I do this presentation, I forget how big that rabbit is I have in the picture there. All right. So there you go, Watership Down is the right answer. So let's go to next, and so you see Wendy has the highest score right now. She answered correctly in the fastest time. So let's try question number 2. What book begins with the famous line, "Call me Ishmael"? Is it Goodnight Moon, The Scarlet Letter, Moby Dick, or Crime and Punishment? It is not the Star Trek novel Ishmael. I had a lot of fun putting this together, as you can see. I don't know what that book is about, but I do kind of want to read it, I have to be honest. So you can see this is just a really quick way to engage with students especially, but I think anybody with a phone will find this interesting. So the correct answer is Moby Dick. Let's see how we're doing. Wendy is holding on to her lead. So we got 1 question left. Let's see how we do. This, in my opinion, is the hardest question. Let's see what we got. Which of these John Grisham novels was written first? Was it The Firm, Pelican Brief, Rogue Lawyer, or The Runaway Jury? I'm probably a bad librarian, but I've never read any John Grisham novels, especially in the law library. I feel like I should read like the Pelican Brief or something, but you know, life gets in the way. Correct answer is The Firm. All right, let's see how we did. First place, coming out of nowhere, Carla. Congratulations, Carla. I don't have a prize to give you, but you get all the gold medals online there, you can see. And it's telling you on your browser, on your phone, how you did as well. Really cool feedback. I can get more results and feedback as the administrator myself. So if I want to grade, so to speak, my people, I could see how everyone did, and I could go back and visit and see what I would have to reemphasize as a teacher or as a presenter to make sure everyone is understanding the content. So this is just a great way to get in front of people and make them engage with you instead of just doing a dry lecture where you're talking at them. Along those same lines, I want to show you Flip Quiz. This is basically Jeopardy. You can create a Jeopardy board here where you can just add in your own questions, your own categories, and assign them point values. So for example, I created this little sample one using some law library questions for people that are getting used to being in law school, but I also added in some other just famous animal things. So let's go to 200. What cat is this? And so we can have people raise their hand or do what have you. And then when we have an answer, we can just flip it over and it'll say grumpy cat. So that's a pretty nice little feature that we have here. There we go. So you can just kind of go through here, and then whoever got that right, you can say, all right, I'll take campus buildings for 400, Alex. It's just a really another quick, free, easy thing to create to get people to understand what things are in a very matter-of-fact way. So if you go to flipquiz.com, you can create a free profile where you can begin creating your own games here. The last thing I want to show you isn't really gamification, but is a way that you could potentially do some gamification in especially a public library. What this is augmented reality. It's just a really short video showing you what you can do. This is an app called WallahMe. It's a free app that's available for Android and iOS devices. All you can do is just hide messages on anywhere in the real world, so to speak, and you can see them on your phone. You can see this woman is looking at an image of a heart on the wall. It's not really there. It's just graffiti, internet graffiti, so to speak, that people can find. So what comes to mind immediately for me here is that we could do a some sort of search, like a scavenger hunt, find where the WallahMe images are in the library, look near the kids fiction, look near the nonfiction, look near the mysteries, and help people get to explore the library that way and find new areas. Maybe even put them on a book itself. You can actually tag a book with that and say, here's the book that I love the most, and there's a heart over it when you're looking at it through the WallahMe app. So just kind of a cool way to get people involved in moving around the entire library as a space. So let me jump back into here, and we'll jump on to the next page. So that is Kahoot, which is free at getkahoot.com, Flip Quiz, which is free at flipquiz.com, and Wallame, W-A-L-L-A-M-E, Wallame, which is a free app for Androids and for iPhones. So next, let's talk a little bit about creating, coding, and exploring in the library. So the one thing I like to show here is Google Earth, but I have learned that people know it so well that I'm only going to touch on it very briefly, but I do want to show you an alternate Google Earth because I think it's really, really a great educational tool, especially for younger patrons, but really anyone that's wanting to explore and learn more about mapping especially. Before I jump off and show you some more samples here, I do want to talk a little bit about virtual reality. Obviously, I can't show you virtual reality per se in a presentation like this. I also shied away from it because it would require purchasing expensive equipment, but there are a lot of people out there that want to try out virtual reality in the library. And we're going to talk a little bit about how a library is a laboratory for technology coming up soon. I think virtual reality falls well into that range as an experiment in a lab in the library. The other cool thing that Google Earth and the alternate one that I'll show you does is it provides mapping data for people. If people want to create their own maps, a lot of this is open source and open access for them where they can grab this data and start to create their own thing using code. So let's jump off and look at these two mapping tools here. So the first one here is called Zoom Earth. This is the alternate one. This is a free website just called zoomearth.com, I believe. It is using images from NASA. So one really cool thing you can do here is you can move it around and you can find where you're at. But if we do the globe view, we can change it to, let's see what the solar eclipse in August 2017 looks like. A really awesome, beautiful view of the solar eclipse blocking out a big chunk of the Midwest right there. Or if we want to look at the lunar transit, we're going to see our friends, the moon, in the way right there. So this is the kind of data and mapping information that is available in Zoom Earth. So you can jump back to map view here and you can search for, let's just search for where I'm at right here. I think this should pull it. Let's see if we can find it here. Yep. So there I am right there. I'm hanging out in that building right there, and I can zoom in a little bit more if I want to too. So a pretty quick, pretty amazing mapping tool called Zoom Earth. It's free for anybody. As I mentioned, Google Earth, a lot of people know this one, but it is such a crazy, unique tool that I can't help but show it really quickly. So if I want to just use Voyager, this is another effective education tool that people may not be aware of. If I want to look at, let's say, native tribes, for example, I want to learn about their sovereignty in action, and I want to learn about constitutional reform, this will take me into the Potawatomi Nation and talk about information there. Or if I want to jump over to Indiana, about how they've relocated to Oklahoma, this is their history of the Potawatomi on a map. So this is just another really effective education tool that you might be able to use in your library with patrons, or just to show off to them that they may not be aware of that this is out there. You can also find yourself on here too. Let's see if we can do that real quick. Oh, I already blocked that. I didn't want Google Earth seeing where I was, so let's just do like I'm feeling lucky. Okay, so it's going to take us to Waterton Lakes National Park of Canada, and it's going to zoom all the way in and show us a really stunning 3D rendered view of that national park in Canada. And on the right-hand side, it's giving you a little Wikipedia entry to show you what we're looking at here. It spins, or you can move it around here. It's really a really great tool, and again, it's free in Chrome. You just have to be using Google Chrome to use this tool. Back on my PowerPoint, you saw that I had a coding option in there for kids. Let's take a look at that one as well. So here we are in Tinker. What Tinker is a coding game for kids. This is kind of combining our gamification portion of today's presentation with coding. So this is a beginning coding tool. So what I am in here is the Hot Wheels game where I have to make this car jump over this ramp over the water onto the other side. To do so, I have to hit play, and then I have to begin building my own. Oh, it says I failed. How embarrassing. I better try again. There we go. So now here is my technology where I'm building code. On the left-hand side, you can see I'm looking at the Tinker version of this code, but I can switch to JavaScript. So now it's telling me what I'm doing here. So if I want to start, I want to do drive. I want to set the speed to medium. And I can change all this. I can see what it looks like in Python. I can switch back to Tinker as well. So if I can switch this around, let's try one more drive here, and we'll try another one too. I gotta connect those two. Now let's hit play and see what happens here. Are we gonna make it? Oh, we hit the water. I better try that again sometime. But you can see that this is just a really simple way for kids, especially young kids in this case, to begin to learn what code looks like. They have this for JavaScript and Python, as you saw, but there's also HTML and a little bit of other coding in here as well. This is the beginner version that I'm showing you here, but there's also intermediate and advanced coding using the same gamification. This is, again, all free as far as I can tell. It's Tinker, T-Y-N-K-E-R, coding for kids. You keep that in mind. I really love it. I'm almost addicted to just this beginner level, trying to figure out how I can get this car across the ramp. I had to stop myself before the presentation and say I better save some of this for the actual presentation. All right, let's jump back into our slides here. So in addition to Tinker, another thing you've probably heard about is hackathons in public libraries, especially where kids get to learn how to take apart code and put it back together. There's also Code Academy, which is a freemium version of where you can learn how to do code in a less gamey way. It's a way that you can start with a very basic HTML, work your way up through CSS to JavaScript, and then on to the more complicated ones like Python and PHP. It's just a way of, it's an online classroom basically for coding. It's really a pretty nice thing. I believe some lessons are free, other ones you have to pay for, which is why I call it a freemium tool. They are slowly kind of getting purchased and snapped up by other places that want to charge for it, but Code Academy remains one of the ones that is at least partially free. So if people are interested in coding these kind of tools online, they may find it more accessible than just reading a book about it or taking an actual in-person or online class. Okay, so now we're to the lab portion of the presentation. We're going to talk about hardware in the library. So I've talked a lot about software so far, but I want to talk a little bit about hardware because I think some people expect when they walk into a public library or any library that you might have the hardware that it takes to perform these actions. Now, that could be the case, but there's a lot of questions to ask before you get to that answer. For example, I want to know, what do you want us to own? Do we want to just buy everything right away? As you can see, what if it is just a fad? Do we want to be on the bleeding edge of everything and then we have something that is not worthwhile owning that we spend a good amount of money on? When I was in library school, one of my professors always used the phrase chasing the shiny, and I think that is something that people can fall victim to. You'll just say, have something that is looking really cool and you immediately snap it up and say, this is the next big thing, but you're so far ahead of the curve that it doesn't pan out. And now you have this obsolete piece of hardware that no one is using and no one is interested in. So personally, I'd like to hold back just a little bit just to make sure that this hardware catches on, is in being used, so we don't have a whole bunch of Microsoft Zune sitting around that no one is having access to, for example. In addition to figuring out if it's just a fad, is it worth the cost? Those two kind of go hand in hand. If, for example, everybody's already buying the hardware, maybe they're not looking to come in and check it out. They want to come in and ask you how to use it or how to use the apps on it, for example. So do we want to buy iPhones or something else that isn't really something that people want to check out that they have themselves? Probably not. But they do want you to have the option of coming in to use it and to get help using it with you. So owning it themselves, they will own it themselves, but they don't want you to own it. Sorry, I said that a little bit backwards. Let me try that one more time. So they don't want you to own it because they already own it. So it would not be worth the cost for you to pick it up because they just want your help using it, not to actually borrow it from the library. Their way, that was much better. Sorry about that. So more advantages to waiting in to purchase something. It obviously impacts your budget and you're standing in the community. I want to talk a little bit about that because perhaps your patrons expect you to own this technology. Perhaps they expect you to have more than just books. If they come in and see that, they'll say, okay, the library is kind of adapting to what I expect them to have, and they're using their budget wisely, and they are people I can come to with these kind of questions, and they'll be able to answer it effectively. However, if they do see that you have this technology on hand, this hardware on hand, they'll expect that your staff is trained in it and that they will know how to answer those questions. So when you begin purchasing these items, keep that in mind because you'll have this stuff on hand and you'll say, here it is, and they'll say, well, how do you even turn this on? If no one there knows how to do that, it probably wasn't worth a purchase. So when you do buy this stuff, keep in mind not just the budget, but also how your community would interact with the item and how your staff would be trained on using that item as well when you get the inevitable questions. And then finally, is software a better investment than hardware? As I said, our patrons just bring in their own hardware. Do they want to treat you like a zoo, a petting zoo, or do they want to treat you as a veterinary office? Let me explain that a little bit more. So when I say a petting zoo, I mean a technology petting zoo. So they come in, they see Windows 10, or they see a Kindle, or they see something, and they want to try it out themselves right there. So they're coming in and basically, petting the goats. They don't want to take a goat home and purchase a goat and have it at home. They want to just try it out there, see if it's worthwhile, enjoy it while they're there. Or do they want to treat you as a vet's office where they're bringing in their items, their tablets, bringing in their computers and saying, how does this work? What can I do to make this better? Can I do this with this computer? In that case, they might be treating you as a vet's office where they're expecting you to be a little more trained in technology. I looked for a good image for a vet's office, and this was the best one I could find. So imagine this cat, the mad kitty, angry kitty, being the computer that people are bringing into you. Because as I said, technology can be frightening, and there's nothing more frightening than a hissy kitty, spitty kitty that's gnawing on you. So it's just kind of I'm drawing an analogy between an angry cat and technology here. So maybe I'm not the best person to present on technology after all. But I think that this is a good analogy in that they'll bring in a technology that they may be frustrated with or may not be working the correct way. It may want you to have some input on that. It may be as simple as saying, well, here's an app or here's a tool that you can put on your phone or on your tablet or on your computer that'll make it work better. Or just to have some advice on where to go to get this cat, so to speak, to behave. Okay, so let's move on to a little bit of a different field here, staying secure and staying private. So on this page, we have 4 different things I want to talk about. The first one is that giant maze between the computer and the globe. That is illustrating a VPN, which is a virtual private network. What that does is it sets up a couple of different tunnels for your connection between your computer and the internet. So it makes it more difficult for people to steal your data or your information. There's a couple different ways to set it up. It's not the easiest thing to set up. I did find a pretty nice website that tells you how to set one up. I'll share that with Jamie so she can pass it on to everybody that attended. But there are a couple other tools that you can purchase, or you can install a VPN on your own computer. And there might be some patrons that come in and say, I'm concerned about privacy. What are the best ways to stay private and stay secure, especially on an open Wi-Fi network, such as at an airport or at a library? And a VPN is a good way to do that. The other 3 icons on the left-hand side are more secure things while you're browsing the internet. I'll start with LastPass and work our way up to Ghostery. So I'm going to jump off one more time here. Get back to our browser. Get away from Tinker. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, I have a bunch of extensions on my Chrome browser, and LastPass is one of them. What we'll do here is we'll open my vault in LastPass. LastPass is a browser tool that is also an app that can go on your phone or your tablet, where you can save all your passwords in one secure place. So you would have one master password that would get you into LastPass, and then once you're in LastPass, it saves everything else for you, so you don't have to remember all these passwords, and you can make them all extremely complicated and difficult to break. So you have only one password to remember, and with that, I'd be able to access all these other sites that I have saved in LastPass. So it's a nice way to save on your own memory because you only have the one to remember, and then it also is extra secure because LastPass, they are invested in keeping these things tightened and battened down. I've never heard of any leaks from LastPass. It is their job, their company is to keep things secure. They are one of the more trusted ones out there in keeping passwords protected. One cool thing they do is, in addition to passwords, I'm not going to show you all my passwords, sorry. I didn't get paid enough to give you all my passwords, is some form fills. So if you want to fill in your credit card information here, you could just do that via Amazon. If you're on Amazon, you could just say fill in the credit card information that's in LastPass. So you could just fill it all in once, and then LastPass would understand to fill it in all these credit card places if you're buying anything online. You can share things if you need to here with other people, or if you have secure notes, if you want to just add other information, as you can see, they're suggesting Wi-Fi passwords or IDs, other things that aren't quite true passwords for websites, but you want to keep secure anyway. This is where you can keep those notes. So a pretty cool freemium, again, app/extension. This is the free version here that I'm using, and I find it really effective. I don't see any reason personally that I need to upgrade it to the premium version myself. I really do like using it. All right, so I do want to talk about a more analog way of keeping things safe. This is called the Diceware passphrase homepage. This is for people that want to just come up with a really difficult password but don't want to store it on LastPass or anywhere else. So this is a good way. All you need is a pair of dice to do this. You roll the dice and it comes up with different excerpts for words that you can use as your password. So as we scroll down here, if you roll a combination of a certain numbers, it'll give you those letters and those words that will form to create a very difficult password that is just absolutely impossible to break because it doesn't make any sense at all. You can see your password down here in their example would be cleft cam, synod, lacy year walk. No idea what that means. It's also utterly impossible to break. So it's just a good way for people that aren't sure that they trust anything that's online like LastPass, but they can still come up with very difficult passwords that they can track themselves. It's kind of an analog way. It's not my favorite way personally, but I do like to show it in case some people just trust a pair of dice that they can actually hold in their hands more than something that is online like LastPass. The next thing I want to show you is Ghostery. You can see it's hanging out up here in the upper right-hand corner. What that is doing is tracking our trackers. So let's real quick go to ESPN.com and watch Ghostery go to work. You can see it's counting upwards and counting upwards. We're getting up to 31 things are tracking me on this website. So if I click on Ghostery, it's showing me all the trackers that are on this website. For example, there are 8 advertising trackers like Google Publishing. Maybe I don't want them tracking me. I can just say block them. I don't want them. Now it's blocked on this page. I don't want any analytics tracking me. I don't want any social media tracking me. Maybe I don't want Facebook tracking me. I don't want Twitter tracking me. So this is a good way I can track. If I'm on ESPN and I say I don't want ESPN showing up on my Facebook feed, I can block Facebook from showing up in ESPN. If I wanted to block it in every site, you can see I can see never ever trust Facebook on any page I'm on, right here, and it'll block it anywhere I go. Over here, you can say I trust this site. You don't have to worry about blocking anything. You can restrict the site so don't even show up on this site at all, meaning I would never get to go to ESPN because none of this stuff is working. Always block trackers on this site. Nothing ever gets through. Or if I were visiting pages I didn't want Ghostery tracking me, I can say pause Ghostery, we'll come back to you in a little while. Ghostery is a free app that's available for, not app, I apologize, extension that's available for Chrome or for Firefox. It is an open source app, which is great because it's a tracker in of itself a little bit, but now since it's open source, we can see what it's doing. It's not selling any information, it's not selling what it's blocking. It's entirely open source, so everyone knows what is going on behind the scenes with Ghostery. Really nice, effective tool for tracking who is tracking you. All right, let's jump back into our point. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about mobility and some apps. So one thing, if you are designing a website, perhaps you're looking at creating a new website for your library, is to design for mobility. As you can see, 3 out of every 4 adults have a smartphone in the US. That's only going to get bigger and bigger as we go on here. And guess what? If everyone is on their phone already, they're accessing your website on their phone. You can install Google Analytics on your website if you were so to choose, and you can see how people are accessing it. And I bet you'll see that a lot of people, more and more, are getting there via a phone, which is just the way the world is going. So as you're creating a new website, keep that in mind with responsive web design and other things that will make your website more mobile friendly. So it follows, if 3 out of every 4 adult patrons have a smartphone in your library, what do they need? My answer is that they would need a Wi-Fi, which is probably covered in most of your cases, chargers, which is an interesting thing. We actually just started checking out chargers here at the law library for students that forget their chargers at home, and it's been wildly popular, and help with the phone. This goes back to the vet office that we talked about a little bit earlier. I bet some of you have already had people bring their phones up to you and say, why is it doing this? Why isn't it doing that? All that good stuff. Again, it's just something to decide how much you want to work with the hardware, how much your staff would want to be trained, and how much time you want to have your staff trained on with this stuff. But there will be questions, and there will be more questions as technology continues to evolve and change. Below that, I have 4 icons for different apps that I like to recommend to people. The first one on the far left is Pocket. What Pocket is a great, it's almost a productivity tool in that it saves you time when you're looking at articles online. I know I'm probably not alone in this, in that I can go down a rabbit hole when I'm reading articles online and I say, wait a minute, it's been 40 minutes, I should have been preparing for that webinar presentation this whole time. Now here I am reading about different articles. Pocket allows me to save that for later, and I can read it offline. on top of that, which is great. I'll show you an example of that in a little while. Next one is Google Translate. Again, that one probably does not need much of an introduction, but I do want to show you what it looks like in the browser extension. Waze is the third one, that little ghost on wheels. Waze is a nice alternative to Google Maps. Waze is a crowdsourced GPS mapping tool that tells you when there are accidents ahead or when there's construction ahead or what the best when you're driving. It also tells you about different police that might be out and about, which is a pretty interesting way to find out where there might be speed traps. One thing that Waze does when I do this presentation live, you can change the voice of the person that's giving you the information. And one of the voices you can change it to is boy band. So if you like to have boy band, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC talking to you, this is the way to go. It's entertaining and irritating all at once, but it's another free app that's available for all the major phones and all the major platforms, Waze, W-A-Z-E. And then the final one on the far right-hand side is just something that people don't really think about often, is there's a lot of free toolbox apps out there, like in this case, a level. You can use your phone as a level. There's a lot of different little mini tools you can put on your phone for free, including, I think there's one toolbox that has 13 in one, like a compass, a level, all this great stuff that people don't really think about, a ruler that you can use with your phone. So I'm going to jump out one more time here, and we'll go to Pocket, and we'll go to Google Translate for this one. So I have Argentina's Bureau of Travel Tourism here open. Unsurprisingly, it is all in Spanish. You can see up in my browser address window, I can translate this page on the spot using Google Translate. Or over here, Google Translate is also right here. So if I click to translate, I can either paste in information. So let's just try this real quick. I'll copy that, and I can just hit that. Oh, there we go. And it's translating for me right there what that means from Spanish to English. Really nice little handy tool to have in your browser. If I want to translate the whole page, I just click this and I say translate the whole page, and there's the whole page translated into English for me. One big caveat with Google Translate is it is a best guess by Google Translate for the translation. I would not trust it to say, yes, this is exactly right, because it's giving you a gist. I wouldn't say this is perfect, I'm going to translate this onto a legal document or what have you, but it is important. It will give you a nice gist of what the website is trying to tell you. Google Translate's free. It's for all the major browsers, also available as an app for Android and for your iPhones, all the stuff. It's available on everything, and it's free. I don't usually like pushing Google in general, but this one is just too cool not to show to people. And then for Pocket, I'll stay on this page. Up here, Pocket is right here. I can save this article to Pocket for later. It'll log me into it, and so now it's now in Pocket. Let me try it one more time. I can add tags, which is awesome for us librarians. I love to add tags. Or I can just go to my Pocket homepage, and you can see here that I'm saving information and articles for later on. This is my list of articles that I've saved in Pocket that I want to read later. The great thing about Pocket is it's available across all your devices. So if I have Pocket installed on my phone, which I do, I can find all these articles on my phone, and I can read them later, even if I'm offline. So if I was at an airport or on a car ride, for example, and I saved all this stuff to Pocket and I didn't have a connection, or I didn't want to pay for a connection, all these articles are saved in Pocket, and I can access them while offline. Really great, really useful tool. One thing that Pocket also does is that you can explore these articles within Pocket as well here if I want to just search for an article within Pocket. Or Pocket also recommends different articles for us as well. I'm always terrified when I click recommended under Pocket. I'm like, I wonder what it's going to recommend for me in front of all these people, but looks like we're mostly okay this time. That was a close one though. But yeah, Pocket is available, as I said, for everything. It's also free. It's mostly integrated with Firefox. If you use Firefox, it's already built into Firefox, but Chrome has its own extension, as you can see as well. Okay. So some browser extensions. We talked about a couple of them already. The two that we showed, Pocket and Google Translate, have extensions, but they're also known as apps. These are exclusively browser extensions. So I'm going to flip through these real quick. Ad Blocker Plus is very similar to Ghostery, except it is more aggressive. It will block anything that's showing up on a page. If you don't like all those pop-up ads, anything that's on a page, Ad Block Plus is one that will block those for you. It's free, and it's available across all the different browsers. Let's see, Noisely is the next one on the far right-hand side. That one is a free noise machine app, or extension and app actually for this one. that if you work better with the noise machine running, this is the one to go with. It just plays right away. It's kind of almost relaxing. I used to show examples of this, but now I get too relaxed doing a presentation. We can't have that. I need to be on focus here, obviously. So again, that one's available across all the browsers and across all the apps, tablets as well. The next four I'm going to jump out and show you, which are Zotero, Momentum, the Wayback Machine, and Time Warp. So I want to show you those four real quick. So I'll become one more time. And the first one we're going to look at here is Momentum. We'll open up a new tab, and there's Momentum right away. What Momentum is it replaces your blank screen in Chrome. It's only available for Chrome, with a really cool homepage like this. It has a rotating background image that changes, I'd say, every couple hours. It's really beautiful. You can see you can also personalize it. So it's good afternoon, Chris. I have it on military time. And today I'm to present to Wisconsin Valley Library Service. So I can check that off there. I've accomplished my goal for today. You can also see in the bottom right-hand corner, I can make a to-do list. I can add common links up here as well. If I have pages I visit frequently, I can just put them all on my home page here. It gives me a nice little inspirational quote down at the bottom. And then we also have a little gear here that can show us all the weather, the quotes. It tells us the history of the quotes, all the pictures, all this good stuff down here. A really cool free app that when I first started showing it, I was like, it's just kind of a silly, fun one that I can show, but I've really come to depend on it for just kind of a home page to give me a real quick snapshot. And to be honest, I enjoy the quotes and pictures as well. Really nice little collection that they have for a free extension on Chrome. Next one I want to show you is the Wayback Machine. To do that, you may be familiar with this one, but I want to show you the extension in action. So I just went to a website called ssnat.com. As you can see, I got an error on this one. It no longer exists. It was actually cited in a Supreme Court decision, the website was, but now the citation is no good because the page is no longer available. You can see some wise guy actually purchased it and said on there, aren't you glad you didn't cite this website and all this good stuff? It's embarrassing, isn't it? However, Wayback Machine will help solve this problem. This little icon up here is the Wayback Machine. If I choose it and I say, show me the first version of this page, it'll take me back in time to what that page looked like when it was first archived. In this case, you can see it was in 2011 that this was archived. This is a school shooter website that the Supreme Court was citing. But you can see now we can see what they were citing and what it was all about. Really cool site that if you ever find a 404, which we all have, and it's always very annoying, if you just have this extension installed, you can just use that to go and find a recent version or the first version of the site instead of just being annoyed about the 404 broken link. Next, I want to show you Zotero. Let's go back to Argentina for Zotero. I could talk about Zotero for a whole hour, but I'll narrow it down to 2 minutes. What Zotero is a research buddy. It's this little icon right here where you can save any website or any PDF to a collection of folders online that you can then share across different browsers or with other people. So if you have people that are researching in your library that are intensive researchers, this is a really great and free tool that is available to anybody across Google, across Chrome and Firefox and Safari. So if I were to save this website, it would save all the metadata about the website along with it. So if someone wanted to cite it later on, it would be very easy to do so because you'd say, here's the page, here's the metadata, here's when I accessed it, all that good information for that researchers need when they're doing their citations. It's also great for organizing and compiling your sources. So if your patron is just beginning research and wants to find all this stuff online, like they're using some of your databases that you have for newspaper articles, they can save all those into Zotero and have them in one place instead of just printing them all out or just save them to a folder on one computer. Zotero will save it in the cloud and you can access it across different browsers or different tablets or phones. Really great. I encourage you to contact me with more questions about Zotero because it's another very addicting research tool that, as I said, I could talk about for a whole hour, but I feel like I would be remiss in not showing it to you here. So it's Zotero, Z-O-T-E-R-O. And the final one I want to show you is actually we're going to go to Reddit real quick because, oh, never mind, I can't go to Reddit. Don't visit Reddit while presenting a webinar. That's good advice. I'm glad I typed that earlier. The thing that stopped me from going to Reddit is Time Warp, which is the final browser extension I wanted to show you. Time Warp is a productivity tool that stops us from going to sites that we shouldn't be going to while we're presenting a webinar or while we should be working. A really nice little thing. You can either have it give you a little text option here, Or if I want to go to Facebook, for example, I didn't block Facebook, but you can see Time Warp at the top is tracking the amount of time I'm spending on their website. So if you ever want to guilt yourself into staying off of these kind of sites, this is also telling you how long you're spending on the time wasting sites. Or you can say, all right, I have 5 minutes I can spend on Facebook. Here we go. I know how long I've spent on this page. One other cool thing you can do with Time Warp is you can redirect. So you can see I typed YouTube into the address bar. It redirected me to the Law Library's homepage. So if I know that there is a site that I just should not go to, a redirect like this will force me back to where I should be working. So that's Time Warp. Time Warp is a free extension just available for Chrome currently. There are other productivity extensions like it, but I like Time Warp just because it gives us those options, and it's also aggravating in a good way. It's focusing me back onto the productivity that I need to get done. For example, presenting a webinar to all you fine people. So now I'll go to Reddit later on after we're all done. All right, one more time, we'll come back in here and we'll jump to the next slide here. We'll jump through all this good stuff. Finally, how to stay up to date. The first time I did this, someone asked me how I find all this information, so I thought it'd be helpful to pass that all on to you as well. So obviously the first thing to do is here's some great websites that I use to try and stay up to date on extensions and apps and technology in the libraries. I'll share all this with Jamie again so you have these links. Or simply just get out there and try out these apps and extensions yourself. It's a great, that's the way I learn personally, is just trying things out on my own. I really just need to get my hands dirty and get my hands around them and figure out how they work, whether it's worthwhile for me or not. Along those lines, a good way to stay up to date here is also another thing I want to show you, which is called Flipboard. And let's do that real quick, actually. Let's look at Flipboard, which is right here. What Flipboard is my absolute favorite news aggregator tool. Flipboard is available as a website, as I am at here. I've signed into my profile. It's also available as an app. I use this to aggregate technology news and also stuff about libraries and law stuff, since obviously that's what my job is. I want to learn about all the late-breaking news in law libraries and in technology. So one thing you can do with Flipboard is I have cover stories, which is a combination of all the different topics, but further down we can see that we have the pages that I'm following, such as technology, and it has some kind of just built in there like sports and home and maps, things like that. If we show more, like for example, law, if we click on this, this is aggregating news stories from that have been tagged as law by Flipboard and Flipboard users. It is really a great, powerful tool to aggregate news stories and find them all in one place. It acts like a magazine a little bit, hence the name Flipboard. You can flip through these news articles as you're looking at them on your app, and just a quick way to kind of browse the most recent news. It updates every time I go in here, so if I wanted to look in here in 5 minutes, it would give me news stories in the law field that have happened since I've looked at it. You can also add your own stories as well, or add your own sources. So if there's a page that you want to make sure it gets into Flipboard, you can just add that page as a source for Flipboard, and it'll keep on following that page to make sure any news from that website show up in Flipboard. Really great, really free tool that's available both online, as you're looking at now, or as an app for iOS or Android. Finally, last thing I want to show you on our live fire exercise here is a nice little tool called Library Experience, I believe, Library Extension. So you can see I'm on Amazon. I'm looking at a book called How to Invent Everything, a survival guide for the stranded time traveler. On the right-hand side, I also have it searching my library, which is SCLS. So I looked in South Central Library System, so no copies are available, but let's just view it to be sure. Okay, so now it took me straight into the library's catalog, and you can see that this book is currently on hold and checked out all over the place, but at least I know that my library has it, and I can place a hold here instead of buying it on Amazon. Library Extension is living right here as another browser that I have installed on Chrome. It's only available for Chrome, but will be available for Firefox soon. It will activate on Amazon and on Goodreads. So if you're looking at a book on Goodreads or on Amazon, it'll say, well, let me check your library for you. You can also add more than one library. So if you're in Wisconsin Valley, for example, and then also using SCLS, you can check both catalogs at the same time. It's a free app that's really a great thing to show your patrons, in my opinion, who might be looking on Amazon to find new suggestions or tips, and then they can use it to come back into your library catalog and push them towards the content that we have that we want them to use. So that was Flipboard, and then Library Extension. And of course, I'll put in a little plug for WLA and for attending these kind of webinars. I'm really appreciative that you all attended today so far. I hope you are enjoying it so far. I hope to see some of you at WLA as well. We'll have a lot more cool stuff like this for sure. And then onwards we go. So technology is quickly becoming not just a limitation, but it's an ever-evolving invitation. I want to make that distinction that at one point technology seemed very limited, both in because it didn't seem like it was doing what we wanted it to, and it was intimidating to people where they felt like they couldn't use it properly. But now it's becoming much more intuitive, as you're seeing, low cost, as you're seeing, and available. So that is all inviting people to use this kind of stuff, to become more involved, to do their research, to find their news, to learn how to code, to find out things about the world, all this great stuff that we can do as librarians with our patrons. So librarians, especially public librarians, I love that people kind of feel like they're invited by the library to try out this stuff, either hardware or software. So if we're trained on this or you learn about it, you can show these patrons how we're involved, how we're experts on these areas, and how we want to invite them to try it out themselves so they can become more comfortable in an ever-evolving technological world. My little GIF here is showing you what it is from 1980 to 2013. So this is 5 years out of date, and you could probably say that this is about right. One caveat I'll put on this GIF is I don't believe that all things that are on the computer have really beaten out the things that are in the physical world. That's, again, kind of chasing the shiny a little bit to say, look, we don't need a bulletin board anymore, it's all on the computer. But I get their idea of saying that it is all available on the computer in some way, becoming not just a limitation, but now an invitation to use this stuff technologically. So with that, thank you again very much for listening to the webinar. If you have any questions, I'll jump back and I'll work with Jamie to answer any questions you might have. You can just type them into the question bar there. And here's my email. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have afterwards if something comes up, or if you have any questions just about anything. I'm a librarian. You guys all know we love to answer questions, so I'm up for anything, anytime. So again, that's my email, and if you have any questions, I'll turn this back over to Jamie.
Wow, thanks, Kris. My head is spinning with everything that you talked about. We do have a few minutes for some questions, so if you have any, you can type that in the question box. And I will be sharing Kris's slides and some other things, as well as the recording on the WVLS website, probably by tomorrow, I would think, at the latest. So that will be available to you. One of the questions that came in is, as far as library extension, does it matter what the ILS is as far as using that?
No, it's just a matter of whether that library has signed up as a part of library extension. Let me jump in there real quick and show you. So if we go into the library extension here and open it up, you can see you can just search for a library. So I'll search for, I know that Wisconsin Valley is in here. There we go, it's right there. So now I can search for both Wisconsin Valley Library Service and SCLS. It's just a matter of whether that has been ingested by library extension. So the ILS should not affect it.
Awesome. A question that I have is, you talked a little bit about the petting zoos and the vet office, and you know what we should be. And do you have an opinion on what would be stronger or more applicable when it comes to public libraries? I mean, part of me thinks we have to be both in a lot of ways. But let's say you're a small library with a small staff and just not a lot of money in your budget for extra tools. Then where do you go with that? Where's the balance with that?
I'm gonna give you an answer that I learned in law school. That is, it depends. That's not a very fun answer to give, but actually I think it just depends where you got to pick your battles. I think you take the temperature of what your patrons are asking for. I think that obviously as librarians, we want to make our patrons happy. And if they keep on asking for, hey, do you have a Kindle I can check out, or do you have a new tablet that just came out, can I check that out? Or are they bringing them in saying, what do I need for this? I think that is where you begin deciding whether it's the petting zoo or if it's the vet's office, to kind of see which way your patrons want to interact with you and the technology.
Right, that's a great point. Great point, which is what we should be doing anyway. So it's
just the same as a purchase suggestion, in my opinion. You
right.
know, like 10 people have asked for this book, I guess we better buy a couple copies of that book.
Right.
Or you can try to, guess what is going to be wanted based on your patron's previous behavior along the same lines.
True. What was the name of the Toolbox app that you mentioned?
I think it is called just Toolbox.
Okay.
It might be called iToolbox, like iPhone, like iToolbox. There's several kind of generic ones. There's the one that has 13.1, I'm pretty sure it's iToolbox, or maybe just Toolbox.
Okay, excellent. And the last question was, how do you encourage staff who might be fearful of technology how do you convince staff to use technology in the library if they are resistant?
That's an excellent question. I always say that's an excellent question, so I have an extra second to think about an answer. So think about it. I think that there's two ways to do it. First, if you have something unique that is tech related, like for example, some of these are really crazy fun things. Like Kahoot, for example, you can show what technology is doing in a positive way, especially if they have a very fearful or manner around technology or are intimidated by it. They can show how simple it is and kind of pull back the curtain on top of that. One thing I always wish I could do with these presentations is show how I created the Kahoot and the flip quiz, for example, because it is so easy to do. Like, it does not take very long at all. It's just kind of pull back the curtain for those staff to say, look how easy this is. It's very simple to do. It's just like working in cataloging or working at the reference desk. It's nothing to be afraid of, and here's how it works. I think just leveling with them on that way is one way to do it. The other way is just to explain to people how it will enhance their lives, like find out what their biggest pet peeve is and maybe in their workflow. Like I have a terrible time staying focused. I always want to read all this stuff. You can say, well, have you heard about this cool app called Flipboard? Let me show it to you. Or Pocket, and say, here's something that might help you with your workflow. Or to say, I know it's frustrating, but this tech is actually something that's your friend in this case. And here's how it can work. And one thing I've always had to do is make myself a little available for staff that are reluctant to adopt technology and say, I'm always here to help you. It kind of goes along the same lines as the patron in that way. Or I'm like, this is something that we should adopt. If you have questions or qualms, I'm not just saying, here it is, good luck. You have a life preserver connected to me, and I will help you and make sure this is working for you and not against you. So it's just kind of a reassurance, show and tell a little bit, and then just focus on showing how it will actually improve their professional lives and maybe their personal lives too. I think it's kind of like instead of jumping in the deep end with coding, you're kind of taking a little tiptoe into the shallow end and saying, okay, here's technology that will work for you. It's big and obvious what it is doing in a positive way, and it's simple to understand.
Excellent. Would you mind putting your final screen back on, your final slide back on the screen with your email? It looks like we're just about out of time for questions, but I do want to remind you that Kris's slides and the webinar recording will be available to you after today. It will be posted on the WVLS website, and that will be sent in your follow-up email today. You also will be receiving an evaluation, and that is, I promise, very short, and we do appreciate your feedback. So if you could fill that out as well, that would be great. And anything else that Kris mentioned, I will be sure to share with you in addition to his slides. So with that said, I want to thank you, Kris, for an excellent presentation. I want to thank you as audience members for your participation and playing along and for your excellent questions. And hopefully this will make us feel a little bit better about using some of the things that are available as far as technology. So with that said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week.